is, by the way, we should be recording it. Okay, right on cue. Thanks, Hari. Um, will others, can other co-hosts also let people in as people come in? Yeah, okay. So welcome everybody to our dialogue number one around these, a set of three dialogues around, uh, decolonization. Yeah, so we're building on the exploring the Dharmic mind conversation that happened a couple of weeks ago as a part of the TRW week, and many of you were a part of it. Um, and we're building on the themes that we've opened up there, and hopefully over these next 3 weeks, we'll get a good opportunity to delve deeper into them. So a big thanks to all of you for being here and being interested in this exploration. How we'll go about it is like we've shared earlier on the email is we'll do it through a fishbowl format where we'll have one circle of one conversation circle which comprises of people who already sent in their reflections of the earlier conversation. And so the dialogue will primarily happen between the members of this circle, while the rest of us will sit in and listen actively to what's happening and to the conversation and to what's happening to ourselves as we listen to this dialogue. Yeah, so it's not just passive listening or just putting it on the side and doing other stuff, but we're truly actively listening. That's the outer circle, and especially observing what's happening to me as I'm listening to this conversation. Yeah, so it's very important that we stay really tuned in to ourselves and to the dialogue. And we will, what happens in the next week, we'll talk about towards the end, but basically we'll use today's conversation to reflect on for the next week. And hopefully we'll have a new circle, inner circle that will come in and reflect and dialogue for week number 2. Similarly for week number 3. Yeah, so the process is fairly clear. So for today, we have uh, from amongst the people who are going to be in the conversation circle, we have Abhishek, Rachnaji, Raghu, Shamaji, Kejal, Hari, and we're missing some more friends who are supposed to be here. Did I miss out anybody, Abhishek? Of course, Raghu and I'll also be a part of this conversation circle. We're missing some friends who are supposed to be here. I'm not sure what happened. Hopefully they'll join in soon. So, and the rest of us, the request is please keep yourself on mute. And even amongst the speakers, if we could keep ourselves on mute and then come in when it's our turn, then that'll be great. Or when we feel evoked to share. And yeah, so anything any of you want to add before we get into the...
No, I think it'll be good if everybody just does a quick round of introduction so we know.
Yeah, so in the speaker circle, right, Raghu? Otherwise, it's too big a group, 21.
Everybody, just give a minute or so. Just
okay, of all 21.
Okay. Big deal, yeah. We're not going to save the world in our half an hour talk or whatever.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So could we have
here and there? Fine. 5 minutes here or there. What's the big deal? Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. So then could we have a round of brief introductions of all present here? No inner circle, outer circle business. Everybody.
To start with, then we'll go into the inner circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start, tag, whatever. So
okay. So let me start. I'm Naveen. I live in Auroville, and I'm very happy to be here because it's a conversation that's been very important for me over the years, and really glad that there are so many of us in this call, and I'm looking forward to the next 3 weeks. Yeah, and I'll tag Meghna.
Hi, thank you, Naveen. This is my first time, and I recently came to know about this particular, conversation on Facebook. So, and I did not fully get a chance to look at the previous videos, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much.
Just tag somebody, Meghna.
Hari Prasad.
Thanks, Meghna. My name is Hari. I'm based out of Hyderabad, and I'm part of Ratambara, and been quite engaged in some of these dialogues of the last year after the TRW event. And personally, it has been a very healing space and a lot of intense explorations being part of these dialogues. So quite excited to see it open up and look forward to today's interactions. I tag Rachna.
Thanks, Hari. Hello, everyone. I'm Rachna Bhangaonkar. I am joining you from Baroda, Gujarat, and I teach human development, which I think is very central when we talk about decolonizing anything. So very glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Tag somebody, Rachna.
Sorry, Abhishek, I'll tag you.
I'm Abhishek. Namaste from Mumbai. Blue Ribbon is the parivar I'm a part of. Mumbaikar at heart, convent schooling, short stint in RSS, and deeply curious about this journey. Feeling very close to it as well. I will tag Shamaji.
Yeah, I'm Shama, based out of Hyderabad. I've been part of this circle actually during the COVID period. I came across the Gandhi studies, and then I got in touch, and I've been part of the Gandhi and Tagore studies, and slowly I've been part of Poonam Cafe also. I've been part of the dialogue. So that's how I came across Ratambara and this dialogue. Thank you.
You must tag somebody, Shamaji.
You just tag, yeah, instead of keeping on telling that person to tag. If
okay.
they don't tag, you just tag Naveen.
I tag Kejal.
Thank you. This is Kejal. I'm based in Mumbai and I work with Blue Ribbon. I'm curious to explore a different way of looking at what I need to unlearn. So that brings me here. I will tag Sangeeta.
Can't hear you,
Your
Sangeeta.
voice is not coming through.
Okay, in the meanwhile, no, it's still not working. So could I tag Rajiv instead? While Sangeet gets
Yes,
her equipment
hi.
sorted.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Rajiv. I live in Oroville and part of Ratambara. This question of what does it mean to live a life that is dharmic and what is really Indian has been very close to my heart for quite some time. And for me, this process of decolonization is integral to these questions and this process of discovering and journeying through this. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to the dialogue. I will tag Kranti.
Thank you, Rajiv. I'm Kranti and I live in Florida, and I've been part of Ratambara since a long time. I keep doing some sessions with Raghu and Shashikala ma'am. And I like to be in this group because it makes me feel enlivened, and I take that energy into my own life. And it's more about unlearning for me. I tag Mala Murli.
You're on mute, Mala.
Namaskaram, and yes, I've been Mala, and this is I'm from Delhi, and I've been following a lot of programs of the Ratambara, and it has really brought a lot of meaning into my life. A big fan of Raghu, and yes, when I attended the previous session, and it made me really think and actually realize a lot of things which I had taken for granted, and looking into it more deeply. Yes, and very curious and looking forward to the session. Thank you.
Okay, so could we tag Sunil Kumar?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm from Mumbai. So I saw this notification on the Indic Book Club, and I was curious. So I joined via this link, and I've seen Mr. Raghu in, I think, the Indica Yoga Festival previously, last year or probably this year. So I'm looking forward to whatever the contents of the program. That's it. And I've written 2 books. One is an anthology of poetry, and the second is a novel. And I have been in technology journalism. I did my master's from London. Basically, even though I was a science student, I'm very interested in history. And recently, I've started learning Sanskrit, and I've been an avid reader for a long time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. Raji Bonella.
Everyone, I'm Raji Bonala. I run a market research consultancy in Gurgaon with my partner. And of a close to 30 years career, I spent a good 11 years in countries outside India and partly, quote unquote, in the developed world. So the whole notion of decolonization is close to my heart. Coming back to India after 11 years was quite a this process of discovery and unlearning and relearning. And it's been about 10, 12 years since then. And it's a perspective that I'm still looking at, and Ritambara is really helping me in that process. Happy to be here. I tag Kaushik.
Namaskaram, everybody. My name is Kaushik Pranu. I'm connecting today from Kozhikode, Kerala. And I'm co-running this initiative called Unlearning Ashram, where we are offering different courses that are reflecting of our journeys of unlearning and experientially for others. And I'm really, really happy to be part of this conversation, meeting familiar and new faces again after the break. So looking forward to seeing what's coming. Thank you. Naveen, could you just tag the next person? I'm not sure who's left.
Was Kaushik, were you part of the work that we did in this thing? What's that place, yeah?
I've met you first in the Earth Spirituality at Fireflies Ashram 2016, and then in Insania, one of the modules I had done. So.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, could we tag Akanksha? Akanksha Thakur. Is Akanksha here?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was just trying to start my video. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Akanksha. I'm from Bombay as well. My work is in the space of mental well-being for children and youth, especially those who don't have access to formal learning programs and children from marginalized communities. I had attended the Exploring the Dharmic Mind talk that happened, and I found it extremely thought-provoking, disturbing, stimulating all at once. And I've been wanting to embark upon this inquiry in a collective and not just by myself. It was great to have this invitation come from Ritambara, so I just sort of jumped at it to say, let's join the dialogue. So yeah, that's where I'm here as a part of this personal inquiry into what all I have internalized and embodied and not even realized, to start with that and then see how that will translate into what I do and how I be in life and with others. Yeah. Thank you. Naveen, could you help me tag someone else? I don't know who all are covered because I joined a little late.
Could we tag Ashok Krishnan?
Thank you, Naveen. Hello everyone, I am Ashok. I am also based out of Mumbai and I volunteer with Blue Ribbon Movement. And I'm here because I'm intrigued in general by the dynamic lens and the Indic way of things, wanting to explore those.
A little louder, Ashok.
I said I'm intrigued by the Indic ways of things and the Dharmic mindset and wanting to explore those. So that's why I'm here.
Okay.
And I'll tag Renita.
Oh, thank you, Ashok. Hi, everyone. I'm Renita from Mumbai, volunteering in Blue Ribbon. And what brings me here is I have heard a lot about Raghuji, and I'm trying to, I want to attend one dialogue though. So finally, I'm here and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm really excited, I could make it till here today. So yeah, that's what brings me here. I'm looking forward toward the 3 weeks ka dialogue. Yeah. And I will tag Pankti. Yeah, thank you, Rani. Yeah, I'm Pankiti. I'm based out of Mumbai. I work with Blue Ribbon Movement. Um, I think the word decolonization, I'm hearing this from so long now. This the word, and I've never get into the ground of it. कि क्या है वो? What it is really, and what it is to this experience it in myself and explore it. So yeah, just looking forward to the conversation. And I think what stuck with me from last conversation was when Raghu shared that it is like when you want to decolonize, it's first you have to accept that the mind is colonized, and just that's stuck with me because I thought it's not that deep, but it's difficult to accept it. Yeah, I'll tag Ranjan. This is not that. Ravi Ranjan.
Rabi Ranjan.
Namaste to everyone.
Hello.
I'm Ravi Ranjan Sen from Kolkata. I have met Raghuji in Bengaluru in the Indic Academy Yoga conference. I was there. I was also presenting a paper there, and I had met him there. And apart from that, I am new to on this platform. I haven't attended any programs of Ritambara or on this platform before. But I'm obviously interested in this topic. So it was the topic. When I saw the topic, I decided to sign up. Generally, I teach history in college, which is based outside Kolkata, in Bardhaman district, and I'm also associated with Vidya Bharati, which runs schools and educational institutions. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, could we tag Arvind Natarajan?
Hi, I just joined, and if you don't mind, can you just share the question?
No, just a 30-second introduction, I guess. So.
Okay,
Who are you?
I'm used to the BRM format of check-in where we have something. So please excuse me. Okay, so hi, good evening, all of you. My name is Arvind, and I'm a volunteer with the Blue Ribbon Movement, and I work for a non-profit based out of Mumbai. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't have a lot to introduce myself with. Just glad to be here and really happy with the way we put up these calls on a short notice and the work that's happening. So yeah, happy to join all of you. Do I tag someone or are people still left? Or,
Yeah. There are people left.
Well,
Suki, Chandya.
Okay,
yeah,
I
Nandini,
will tag Renita.
Renita is over, so let's just tag Ekta.
I tagged. Okay, yeah, sure.
Ekta, are you here? Okay. Could we hear from Suki? I don't think Ekta is able to hear us. Suki, are you here? Are Suki is also logged off?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Sorry, Suki. Your face disappeared from the other panel. Yeah, sorry, please. Yes.
Hi, I'm Linda and I'm from Kolkata. And we're supposed to be talking about ourselves, right?
Yeah, just a quick introduction.
Okay, okay. So I am here because this topic is very close to my heart. Yeah. That's
Okay.
it.
So,
And you're a
so case is
core
over.
member of these endless dialogues.
Yes, I do those dialogues and in the process of finding myself through these dialogues. Yeah, outside of the colonized mind. Every day I find one more strand of my colonized mind. It's so deep and so it's so invisible.
Yeah.
Okay. Could we tag Akash Upase? Is Akash here? Chandni, could we hear from Chandni as well?
Hi
Not too sure Akash.
everyone.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chandni from Bombay. I'm a psychologist. I work with non-profit organizations. I'm a friend of Abhishek since many years. And I'm just happy to be a part of this very intriguing, deep conversation. So thank you really for organizing this.
Thanks, Chandni. So
I don't know whom to tag, and I'm
yeah,
sorry about
I'll
being
take care
late.
of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could we
Suruchi,
tag Vidya?
Vidya.
Yeah. Vidya.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Naveen. I'm basically a homemaker come yoga teacher. It's 50-50. And I've been doing a lot of programs with the Tambra. I come from Erode in Tamil Nadu. It's very traditional family background, but had an education that was British to the boot. So I've always had this, it's been always inside me, one confused state of mind. I mean, it's not confusion exactly, but it's a kind of a pull and a push. So trying to get some clarity and the authenticity of the dialogues here keep pulling me in all these dialogues. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Vidya. Akshay, could we hear from Akshay also?
Yeah, hi. Very good evening, everyone. This is Akshay Login from Chennai. Work with an NGO called Bhumi. Predominantly, our work is around volunteering and yeah, this is the first time I'm attending such conversations. So just looking forward to learn something new from this. Thank you for hearing me. Over to you, Naveen.
Thank you, Akshay. Priyam Shakti, could we hear from Priya?
Yeah, thank you, Naveen. Hi, everyone. I live in Tiruvannamalai. This dialogue and this journey, I think, of decolonizing started for me when I walked out of college more than 20 years back. I didn't know what in search of, but then that led me to encounter Gandhi and Hind Swaraj. And that's when these questions of what is it to be Indian, what is my dharma, all of these questions really began. And today, and the questions just, I think, continued. And today, as a yoga therapist in the Krishnamacharya tradition, what is very active and alive for me is what does it mean to decolonize our ideas of health and well-being. That's where I am. I'm very glad to be here. Can you do the tagging? Yeah.
Yeah. Suruchi. SA. Yeah.
Hi, Anvi. I'm Suruchi. I live in Mumbai. I'm part of Blue Ribbon Movement, BRM, and I'm an actress. And I don't know, somehow very organically in my life, I have come to this stage where all these things are just appearing, and I'm just so glad that they are, because it seems to be exactly what I've been searching for, and it's just all coming together in a really beautiful way. Wish it had come much earlier, like a decade ago, but that's what it is. So I'm in a way slightly envious of like Renita and Pankati and all the young people here getting such a head start on all this. But it's fabulous. It means all our work is paying off, in a way. So yeah. And I think Sangeeta and Raghu are left. So I don't know.
No,
Anyway.
Nandini also.
No,
Nandini,
is
Mala.
left.
I don't know.
Siti is left.
Nandini Murali, do we have?
Yes. Hi, I'm Nandini. I live in Madurai. I work in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm passionate about writing, photography, and gardening. My engagement with decolonization began several decades back when I was studying, when I was a student of contemporary psychology. I just felt something was missing. And I even wondered, do I spend 5 years in engaging so deeply with something where I felt something integral was missing? At that time, I didn't know what was missing. But then I think the journey has been very intense, and my deep engagement with gender studies also caused me to look within myself. It's not been a very easy journey, and also several unusual circumstances in my life have really caused me to look within myself for my sources of power, and how easily I gave it away. And then about how to live life on my terms, to tell my narrative on my terms, which is what I keep doing in my writing. I've been a part of Ritambara, and I think the interface with Ritambara has enriched me very deeply. And my decolonization is a work in progress. I completely resonate with so much of what Suki says. And yeah, it's right now it's a lovely space to be in. It's been a journey of highs and lows, mountains and valleys. But I believe that whether I get to choose, whether it's viewing life from the mountaintop or the valley, I get to choose. Whether I choose to be happy or sad, I get to choose. So that's where I am right now. And I'm looking forward to the conversations in this space, as always.
Thank you, Nandini. Just checking if Sangi's audio is working.
Chitti is also left, yeah?
Chitti is Arvind's alter ego, Raghu.
Oh,
Same
okay,
person in two devices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Yes. Yes, Sangeeta, we can hear you. Go on.
Okay, let me. So I live in Auroville, and
Okay, we can't hear you.
I call myself a student of no.
No, go on. Last chance.
It's frozen again.
Yeah. So Raghu, over to you,
Okay,
Raghu.
turn off my video. Okay, I'll just type it.
Yeah. Raghu?
Okay, so I'm Raghu, and what more to say? I don't know.
What
There's
more
so
to
many.
It's 18:30.
I've been on this journey of trying to discover who I am for a long time, and worrying about the planet and so on. So I carry on doing my stuff joyously at times, full of angst at other times, and that's it. And sometimes both simultaneously. Yes, over to you, Naveen.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So could we have the folks who would be in that in the conversation circle today, your video is on, and then the rest of the video is off. Yeah, so that we're able to. And then how we'll go about it is, I think there are about 6-7 of us. If we can make our initial sharings, about 2-3 minutes max. If each of us could do one round of sharing around what are the questions we're carrying into this conversation, or any reflections, any feelings, whatever we want to state, and then we will build it from there. Yeah, so we'll make it's not a check-in, but really what are our opening offerings into I'm really seeing it as a certain homum, So each of us pour, some ghee and collectively build this fire. So let's go one round around the circle of sharing our offerings. And in the interest of time, we'll keep it around 2 to 3 minutes for the first round. And then we'll build it, then we'll probably take this time limit thingy off and then see how it flows organically from there. Yeah? Is that okay? Great. Thank you. So, yeah, if the rest of us could keep our videos off, and the speakers, because some of us, you can also choose to only show the videos. Anyway, I'll leave it to you. So the circle is open.
I can begin with some alive questions for me right now. I think just in my own journey of experiments.
That means Suki is going on and off.
Her camera is going on and off.
Yeah.
I thought we had to go off the camera when the discussion is on.
Yeah, there is a speaking circle and there's a listening circle. Yeah, so those on the speaking circle, if we could keep our cameras on and the others camera off.
Naveen, or I could spotlight the speakers.
Okay, that's easier, sure.
What is that?
Add as a spotlight so that everybody sees.
Okay, please go ahead, Abhishek. Yeah.
Sure. So I was just sharing some of my recent experiments with learning about colonization, decolonization, practical experiments. And therefore the questions arising from those. One of those was joining a WhatsApp group, which was Modi 24 for Prime Minister. And just to see what kind of communication is coming from the right about it. And what I saw was a very interesting mix of humor, spiritual, almost spiritual kind of content, and then the othering content sneaked into it. So it's almost like, so to speak, the virus is inserted on top of other palatable content. But I think one question I'm kind of saying is, how do you, assuming this is an infection of sorts, colonization, it has a lot of hosts. So how do you charto, like how do you zoom into it, and how does one narrow in? What is the language? What is the process? How do we zoom into the nature of the, so to speak, infection of this thought of othering, this thought of colonization? So I think that just practically seeing how it's all mixed up and served to people, it's almost like you're eating the food and the medicine is, or the sort of contamination is put into that. So I think that's kind of one question.
Abhi, quickly, sorry if I may ask, why is this important to you? Like, I don't hear you. Like, what about?
I would like to be able to,
yeah,
sure. Yeah. I would like to be able to be very sharp in being able to identify out of the clutter or the noise, which part of this is othering, because I don't want to dismiss the whole thing as like, this is the other. I don't want to listen to anything, right? And it's like the so-called thing is in disguise, and I want to be able to unmask it and unmask it well.
Why is that important for you? Sorry if I'm asking.
No, sure. I think I'm happy
I'd like to hear you.
Yeah, I'm happy to think aloud on that one. It is important to be because I feel that I'm face to face with a phenomenon that is very slippery, that has layers and layers, and that's very hard to pin down. And my struggle is in being able to pin it down, right? To say that there I spotted it, there I spotted it. And I feel if I'm able to spot the phenomenon more sharply, then I'm able to respond to it, or I'm able to do something about it. right? And I feel it's varying, it's in various disguises and forms, and it's dissolved in the culture so well. So I feel the need to kind of I feel my response to it will be much better if I'm able to discern at what point did it stop becoming innocent and start becoming othering, like what is the host and what's the virus, so to speak, right, as a part of my own disinfection, if I put it that way. I don't know if that helps. So that is one.
Come back to it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add one more thing. I think the other thing that I feel colonization kind of, I think, manifests for me is in a constant feeling of being superior / inferior in different contexts. I think I struggle at times to find a space of true oneness or equality vis-a-vis people, vis-a-vis things. And I wonder whether that's again a result of looking at things only as therefore the other, and then that other has a place. So I have not fully been able to identify this phenomenon, but I have a feeling that some of this is linked to my colonized mind. The inability to meet the other where the other is, and the tendency to therefore place the other either up or down or sorry. Yeah, so I think that's kind of the other question of how what is the oneness that would allow a true communion and a true sense of oneness and equality without these games of superior inferior in my head. So I think that's the other piece. I would like to have that intimacy and oneness as a way of being, not able to always have it. So I think something there for me would be another thing. So I think these two are alive for me. Yeah. And just, I think, just one last thing. I have a minute, I hope. Or am I out of my 2 minutes? Naveen, I'm happy to pass it on.
Not so strict, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the third one was recently we had our lab, the Blue Ribbon lab was at the RSS training center, and I had a chance to talk to my friend from RSS, who we go back a long time. And it was a very interesting conversation because some of the concerns seemed shared, like polarization, or at least that's what was said, right? That and of course, then there are certain parts where there were difficulties and disagreements. And I'm like, okay, so how do you treat this person? Like, do I treat him like an ally? Do I treat him like an opponent? Do I treat him? What is the right relationship with something that I have mostly disagreements with, right? Like, what is the right relationship of a person who comes from that organization? Is it a person-to-person relationship? Is it this person represents an organization and an idea that I feel an allergy to? I mean, not fully allergic. I think I'm less allergic than most people to it. And yet, so I think what's the right relationship when engaging with the other in some of this? I think that again links back to my first question. Again, because I would love to relate. I would love to have the intimacy of oneness and connection, because I'm sure the shared dream of happiness, there is some truth there also. I mean, there is a desire to see people happy, to see the nation flourish, and yet there are differences. So I think I struggle with that as well. So these are kind of some of my struggles when it comes to this broad topic. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Abhi. Would like to share next?
I could add. I think for me, the word Abhishek used, unmasking, stays, and that also takes me back to the conversation, dharmic mind conversation, which I was listening, where Suruchi said that she always felt that there was something missing. And when I was listening to that, I could also connect to that feeling of something missing, something not feeling, not knowing what it is, what is not there, but yet knowing that there's something missing in all that's happening. And for me, since schooling and growing up has been in a city and in a very Western approach of what is success, what is life, how you should achieve, what orientation you should have about an entire life. I think all of those always kept feeling not okay with the way I was pushed to do. And that kind of wanting to go beyond and beneath into values and holding that sense of, what does it mean to be Indian? Like, I'm born in this land, but there are so many parts of being an Indian I don't relate with right now. I feel so disconnected to a place where I'm born, brought up, and I value some parts of it a lot. But if I have to claim and speak that, I think I feel very disconnected of saying that I'm an Indian for a longest period of time. It's only like last few months I've built some comfort around exploring it and seeing that why do I feel this? Where is this coming from? And the amount of inferiority I feel when I speak to people from other countries, and I automatically like go behind and I'm like, okay, maybe they know better and I don't know. Like, yeah, I think some of those questions kind of started for me when I was hearing Suruchi's story, saying that this is what happens to me when I am in India or when I'm talking to people outside of India. And that is my struggle of figuring what does it mean to be colonized or decolonized.
Kajal, I'm curious, could you share, if you don't mind, a little bit more about how this plays out? Like, how does this inferiority play out? What happens?
Sure. So last year sometime I was doing an online course on being alive in online spaces. It was a facilitation course I was part of as a participant. Most people in that, it was offered by an international facilitator. Most people in that group were people from international spaces, plus people who are very older, senior also. And generally when I'm in a space, I'm very happy and excited to share and talk. But like I just suddenly went back, like okay, what is happening? Why are people speaking like this? And I felt like I didn't know how to speak. I felt like my accent of English was not their accent of English, and hence it was not okay. I felt like every time I shared, I pushed myself to share only on, I think, second or third session. I'm like, I have to do something. Or in the breakout, I remember, because there was no option, but I had to share. And then I'm like, okay. But I felt I was not received. Like I felt like probably what I was trying to say was never landing on them. And then I was like, what is this happening? Like online spaces and facilitation is something I keep doing, but like, why is it happening here like this? And I would have huge headaches at the end of it. I felt like leaving it a couple of times, and a lot of internal resistance to showing up in those spaces also came up.
Thank you, Kate.
That's very interesting, Kinjan. Yeah. He has pushed me to reading one book, following this person called Reshma, what's his name? Reshma Menakem. Yeah, I think if we are serious about colonization and decolonization, we really have to read that book. Yeah, he talks about white body supremacy and black body trauma. I think we ought to extend it to saying colonized body trauma. What you're describing is very, very much like what he's talking about. Yeah, and there are a number of things he talks about where, you in a gist, you've given exactly what it is like to internalize colonization, not know where it's coming from, not know how it is hitting you until it hits you.
Would like to go next. I'm also not sure if there's been a miscommunication. Shamaji is not here. She was supposed to be a part of the conversation circle here. So you're on mute, Shamaji. So if you're able to, then please do join us.
No, I'm very much here. My bandwidth is low, so I had to switch off the video. So otherwise, it's a lot of, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm listening to the conversation.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Who would like to share next? Yes, Rachna.
Yeah, so this journey kind of goes back quite a few years. I have studied and I teach at a department which has always had long-ranging international collaborations. So much of the way our curriculum has developed and what I teach today has emerged like that. Thankfully, creating spaces for Indian stuff. However, I teach something so basic to human experience, which is human development, how children grow, what is the family context and stuff like that. So there are hundreds of advantages of doing this in an interdisciplinary space, but at the same time, as I grew into a professional, I started realizing that whenever we had international collaborations or people coming in from outside, I found myself changing my stance, sometimes trying to make them happy, sometimes trying to sell what is Indian, literally, quote unquote, sell. Sometimes not knowing what I'm talking about, not knowing what's my own, what is it that I'm telling about Indian families or my own experiences of growing up. So it was almost like, getting them validated. Then as I started going to international conferences and doing stuff that academicians are expected to do, that space became all the more uncomfortable. Here you are lost in a crowd of 1,000 people from different nationalities and cultures, not knowing how to talk, not because nobody ever kind of prepared you. So I think one of my first few questions to Raghuji, that's how I got to know him, was about preparation to be in an international space. I had done that on my own in the past on a fellowship and things like that, but the more I ventured into these spaces, the more I felt that I really need to claim my space. I really need to be standing on firm ground to be able to look at people in the eye and say, this is what I am, this is where I come from, this is what I have to offer. And I didn't quite understand why this was so difficult for me. What was it about my upbringing which was fairly decent? Went to an English medium school, did this, that, and the other. So I really didn't know what was it that was acting as a barrier. And it became all the more complicated when I saw some of my mentors being so enamored by the American academia, writing stuff which really just was in their service, And so today, when I'm calling them out or when I'm having discussions, I think it is because I took the trouble to know what was my own. And it was a lone struggle. It was like, if you, for example, much of my work is on the development of morality and dharma in Indian families. And it was a lone struggle because for one concept, you had like 500 different things popping out, many of them in Sanskrit, which I simply couldn't, understand. So, but one kept trying and one kept doing what was required to be done, and also being called out in spaces to say, no, this is not what it is. And it was really uncomfortable to say, oh, but this is something that is very Indian. How is it that I don't know it? And so then again, you go back, you find out more. Today, when I am in a certain space, I can say that, it's been a struggle, but I think it's been worthwhile to be able to say, look, if you're going to talk about any concept that comes out of India, nobody knows it better than me. In the sense, because it's not in terms of academic referencing, but in terms of my lived experience. I have lived and understood it, and you cannot replace that. That cannot simply be wished away. And so I think it's been a tremendous journey of reflection, constant discomfort, and of course, the blessings of people like Raghuji and Anand sir and a lot of others who have really given the confidence to say, okay, if you have a question, come to us. because I think that is also something that we are depriving a lot of our young people. You can't ask questions, we don't have the answers. Where is this person supposed to go? Yeah, what will happen to this person at the prime of their life? When they have questions, they have nobody to turn to. And I think as a teacher, I feel tremendously responsible for this. I don't want people in my class who feel bottled up and don't feel confident of asking something which is a part of their very real experience. If that is something I can't respond to, then I should not do social science in India or anywhere else for that matter. So this is what I bring to this forum. And I think these questions are very real for me. They are very evocative for me. And I think even if I don't find the answers, I think I must keep asking them. That's important, to move from one question to the other. And I think that's why I'm here. So thank you so much for patient listening.
Very, very interesting, Rachna. You know, one of the fundamental ideas, I think, and I think it's a design of colonization and the way it proceeds, is for the colonized to say that my lived experience is not valid.
Very true.
Right? And the more the colonized people say that my lived experience is not valid, they disappear from the earth, no? Because you are making sure that you don't appear.
Right.
Right? And you only appear in a way that serves the other. And this is so nice for the colonizer, na? Because it gives them power. You are voluntarily offering your power to that person. Yeah, and it'll perpetuate this whole cycle of exploitation, of willingly handing over what is yours to the other, and so on.
And you know, if I may add, this whole feeling of now when we are independent as a nation and all that, when I see this same strategy, you know, getting percolated in our bureaucracy,
Yeah.
I feel so disheartened, because I feel the colonizer has never left. He's never gone. And
Yeah.
like, you know, and we are in this whole process, we are really harassing our own without and feeling good about it. So
Absolutely.
that's a place I'm stuck with. What do you do then?
But that's the success of colonization, na, Rachna?
True.
What
Very
Ashish
true.
Nandi writes about, what several other people write about, Frantz Fanon writes about, where you internalize the oppressor. And you then go on oppressing other people. Yeah, and again, you know, I'm going to keep referring to Resma because that's what I'm reading right now. He does a very interesting comparison, right? Which really struck me about India. He talks about how blacks call people who are blacker than them niggers, right? And he says that Jews never use certain derogatory terms that white Americans use against Jews or something else. But he says the black American has internalized it. I was just thinking, hey man, India has internalized it like you wouldn't believe. Yeah. And recently, I was just really shocked, and I don't know how to respond to this at all. Na? There's a description of Draupadi in some discussion forum, Quora or something like this. Yeah. And it describes her from some parva, this, that, and the other. The guy has taken the trouble to go refer to the original and put it there. Right? She's described as a dark, beautiful woman. And he's got a picture there underneath, which is from one of these comics of a white Caucasian woman. The drawing is of a white Caucasian woman. The description is of a dark blue beauty. Right? I mean, it's incredible that this person cannot see the contradiction. They cannot see how they're pushing whiteness cream in this one page. They've done more for whiteness cream than all the ads that come on television. It just really, it hurt me to see it. How deep is the colonization? No? That you can't even see what you're doing. Yeah. It comes up over and over and over again. I mean, in so many different ways. Yeah. And I think one of the most subtle games that's being played is being played out in academia. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes,
it
yes,
also, it hurts me personally, because if I stand up and say, this is what is yoga because Krishnamacharya told me this, I would be asked to give a reference. And what some white idiot has written about Krishnamacharya and gymnastics, yeah, as though he learned yoga from some gymnastic thing, will be considered truth. Whereas my listening to him talk about how he developed what he developed, where he learned it from, will be considered some cock and bull story of a native informer. Yeah, and this kind of violence is continuously reinforced by Indian writers. So the violence and this thing is quite deep, right? And it's really sad. I mean, when I'm talking to you, my stomach is turning. It's a visceral thing, nah? And I don't think people realize how visceral it is and what this does, nah? Because what Kejal is talking about, I've heard people in IT organizations talk about. Yeah, they know that the guy in front of them does not know as much as they do, but they cannot negotiate. Something stops them from negotiating and putting the other. I mean, it's not a you versus me or one-upmanship, right? It's just an honest business deal. But you can't stand up and negotiate for yourself honestly because something in your body doesn't allow you to stand up and say, this is where you stop, no? To draw the lines clearly. So this colonization is extremely useful for the colonizer, and the colonized continuously pay the price for it.
Thanks, Raghu. Thanks, Rachna, for this. What I'm sitting on is, I think, a considerable amount of anger, because anytime we open up this conversation, it gets clubbed into a certain ideology. Today morning, I unexpectedly ran into a long debate with a senior activist friend who basically called these conversations, he colored it with a certain color, and I notice it happening often. The moment you say decolonization, and especially in today's times, it automatically becomes like, oh, you're like, you're of a certain ideology. And that saddens me, it hurts me, because I think it's a very important conversation, or an exploration more than a conversation, to look at how are we deformed, either through a lot of shame, or, I also find a lot of false pride around of late around who we are, or a lot of shame around who we are. So I really think both are distortions, and it's important to really dig deep and be rooted in who we are. and I'm a little hurt by how hard opening up these spaces are for conversation and exploration. So that's something that I'm currently with, and also I'm just a lot of what you shared has also brought up a lot of anger for me, because uh, to yeah, it's sometimes asking this question oftentimes has made me very lonely. And of course, I've not asked it with a lot of grace. I have been very reactive, or I've been very angry myself and all that, or whatever, disturbed. So, like, I think I'm reminded of some, maybe I might have been one of your students, Rachna, in that sense. I had a lot of questions, but very few places where they could be dealt with any amount of rigor or dignity. And hence, I became very reactive internally. Well, became like a pressure cooker. And
No, I
there are a
wish
lot of
some of my
repercussions.
students were that reactive, honestly. They are simply losing it. They're becoming so apathetic that you feel it's a lost cause already. So that's
Yeah.
also something that's very depressing.
Yes,
Kind of kill the flame before it caught fire. Sort
exactly.
of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very lucky to have found a Sangha where this question was not just allowed, but given space to deepen. But that's a rare privilege. So I'm also sitting with the pain of the lack of such spaces. And hopefully, little efforts like these can create small cracks in the concrete, for new seeds to sprout and grow forward. So that's where I'm at.
Mm. Very interesting, yeah. See, Abhishek very quickly said, my rightist friends. No? I don't think he realized that he was using colonized language. Right? Do you know the history of the word rightist and leftist, Abhishek?
The seating in the French parliament?
Yeah. So the unwashed and the people who didn't use perfume were the leftists, because neither of the people had a bath often enough. No? So those who used perfume were rightists, and those who didn't were leftist. That's not my statement. That's the statement, I think, of Foucault, if I remember right. Yeah. So they should have been called the perfumed and the non-perfumed, and that would have been very accurate in many ways. No? Because colonization is also making sure that your smell is not smelled. No? Your reality is not experienced. Right? And what your friend did to you, Naveen, is colonization. Yeah. Because he's setting terms of a dialogue. And I don't think this person is aware of where the terms are coming from.
Our friend Raghu, but we'll talk about it separately. Yeah.
Whatever it is, yeah. Yeah, that is the reality, no? That the fact that you are so colonized that you're afraid to own up to how you're colonized and to face the wrath of standing up and saying who you are, I think is very, very critical. Yeah.
Thanks, Naveen. For me, these dialogues and these spaces have been a healing space at multiple levels, because this entire process made me relook at my own sense of belonging, how I'm holding, because for me, what I got in touch with and what I'm sitting on right now is also a lot of sense of hurt and anger, of the history that I believe of what happened to my family or country, and also how it is being presented, how it is being dealt with in today's context. And personally, I grew up being part of the Chinmaya family, and it was a very intellectual space. And there was always a certain sense of wanting to reclaim the glory of the heritage, and which inspired me a lot as a teenager. But coming from Kerala and being in a space where it was fashionable to really deride anything that was giving importance to heritage, a lot of the way I internalized, I realized these things were by being reactive. So I didn't really pay attention to, or I think the context where I belonged to did not really recognize the importance of understanding the need to own up to the hurt or the sense of victimhood. And I see that a lot of my eventual even career choices and things were very motivated as a reaction to that hurt. So there was a phase where I pursued civil service and things, thinking that, okay, I can be a change maker and all this kind of ideas. And even there, the subjects I took up were sociology and Malayalam literature. And when I did my master's in sociology, it was very, it created a lot of dissonance for me. Looking at how all the Western theories were applied to Indian society, and like what Rachna ji shared earlier, I found it was completely devoid of my experience of Indian reality. And when they talked about how Hindus and Muslims were at loggerheads, I had a family which was a Hindu royal family with a Muslim army, who even now continue the tradition of very cordial relationships. So there was a lot of levels where I could not question. When I asked the questions also, they said, no, this is not a question to be entertained. This is how it is. You have to write this way to clear the exam. So I'm very glad I didn't clear those exams looking back now, because it pushed me to temporarily a lot of depressive phases at that time. But luckily, I also got an opportunity to come into these kind of spaces. And one of the key shifts I am seeing within myself in the last 1 year as I'm being part of this dialogue series is realizing the distinction between what is really healing and what is venting, what is cathartic. Because a lot of times for me, it was all very ambiguous. Sometimes having a very good Facebook debate, I thought was a healing process, because I could intellectually counter somebody's arguments. But then more and more I started realizing this is all dissipating my energy, it's all de-energizing me. So I'm very glad that now I'm feeling less inclined to those kind of debates and arguments. And but also I realize that it's also just a starting point, and I'm very, very interested and invested in this space because I'm also in the space of teaching yoga. And growingly in the last couple of years, many parents of teenagers have been asking me, can you create some things where our teenagers can understand a little bit of our heritage? But because what I'm seeing is sometimes many of them studying in international schools, when they are asked to chant something or anything, it's so much of shame. And these are the same children who otherwise break into a dance or sing something which is Western in the class while teaching. So it struck me so deeply, and I'm still playing with that idea of how to, but I know that it has to start with me, and because it doesn't serve any good if I just pass on what I received as being reactive or being hollow in going to the reactive space of glorifying. But how can they also realize, how can they own up to what is being done to them in their institutions? And I think it's going to be a very tough phase. But I'm also left with hope being here. So that's where I am.
No, but this is exactly what people don't realize, no? See, there are certain kinds of carrots that are placed in front of us if you get colonized. Okay, when I finished my IIT, there were about 210, 212 people who finished, with me, right? If I remember right, 180 or 190 of them chartered a flight and went from here to the US. Okay. Now, what is important is the kind of dialogues and discussions that happen between me and some of the people who left, right? the idea that I would not apply to go abroad. I was counseled by a few of my professors, thinking that there's something wrong with me. Yeah. Because I had an uncle of mine who was a very well-known scientist, right? And they would say, "You're so-and-so's nephew. You don't even need scholarship, right? Why are you not applying?" So if I spoke to them saying, "Look, if I go abroad, yeah, there's a very high chance that if I would have got a scholarship, I'm pretty certain." Where would the scholarship have come from? Should have come from NASA? Should have come from some project that was ultimately linked to weaponizing America. And if I said that, look, I don't believe in that at all, and I will not go that direction, I would be counseled even more. Right? And isn't it ironic that a country which has got independence through ahimsa and nonviolence, yeah, has professors telling me that I'm nuts if I argue against going in for a project which is funded by NASA, which is funded by the armed forces, that whole complex. Right? In the 70s, it is very clear that this was the way it was funded. Right? And when some of us stood up and said, what is this education you're giving in IIT? What is it meant for? Is it meant to make us go abroad, or is it meant for us to deploy it in the country? Right? We were called miscreants and punished. Yeah, so this whole mindset that if you speak up for anything which is indigenous, which is Indian, and if you question the current idea of what is happening, you're somehow, some deviant. So now it's very easy, na? You can be given a color. At that point of time, it wasn't yet the period where the moment you said, there's something nice about India, you have to be given a color. You weren't yet given a color. You were called a Jolna Pai fellow. Yeah.
Jolawala.
Right, as a Jolna.
Jolawala, huh?
Yes, yes, Jolawala, yes.
Jolawala.
Somebody who will
Right?
bring change.
Yeah, because I'd wear Indian clothes and whatever, so I became a Jola wala. Right. So these kinds of ways in which you're made to feel ashamed for even standing up, I think have to be countered. And then what was the research that was being done in IIT? Right? At least of late, there is some interesting original research being done because there's some people who've worked towards it. It was just replaying Western research in India so that this guy could write a paper and be invited to go abroad. Very, very little original work when the country needed scientists to go in and do original work. So there was a Professor Sheshadri, who was a very close, good friend of mine and Sashi's and all that, who was part of PPST and Dharampalji's work. He was very respected amongst a few of us. But generally, the rest of the community of students didn't respect them because he said, can you design a great windmill that can be fixed to a palmyra tree? Now, if you worked on a windmill that could work on a palmyra tree, it required very high engineering skills. But you won't get a job. Yeah. Today you might. That point of time, no chance of getting a job. Yeah. So the whole system is righteously rigged to keep feeding the colonial processes and not respect a real indigenous pride and discovery. And it's just become worse in 70 years of independence, not become better.
Okay, as somebody who's debated a lot with Hari on these online forums, yeah, Hari, over the years, I'm curious what you consider healing now.
I don't know, actually. I know that that was not. So I'm
No, Hari, it's not difficult. Hari, it's not difficult at all, Hari. See, like for example, what we are doing now, yeah, is it cathartic? Is it inquiry?
inquiry.
Yeah. Now, if it is inquiry, really, then it is healing. If it's just blowing off steam and saying those guys did this, those guys did this, it's a bloody waste of time. Yeah, it's either cathartic or reactive or whatever. That's no use at all. Right. But to ask these questions from a part of you that is settled, that is anchored, but honest, is important. That's the way for healing, na? Not running away from it, not being apathetic, not being reactive, not being filled with shame and self-hate. Just the process of releasing yourself bodily, viscerally, from these kinds of reactions, to be able to look at things and say, this is the reality. And then start from there is fundamentally decolonization. And people who refuse to look at it, saying, no, 70 years, why are we still talking about it? I think people who are frightened of the trauma of owning up that we are a defeated people. We are a traumatized people. We have to start from there. But that doesn't mean I have to be wallowing in self-pity or in anger. The reality, and let me heal.
Yeah. It's I mean, I can very much that way I can relate to it, Rico, because earlier, looking back, I can also see that whenever I had these kind of debates, I immediately get mouth ulcer. I can feel, but after these inquiries don't leave me with those kind of.
Man, of course, acid would go up because your vata is going up. You're becoming rajasic. What else will happen except stomach or mouth ulcers, or worse?
No, so the toughest part is to continue to hold these things that with importance, that they matter to me, without running away from it, because that's the other extreme, no? True.
I have also experienced that some amount of anger is necessary.
Of course.
Because to also know that I'm going through this experience and it's humiliating in some way, and I need to do something about this. I need to sit with that anger, not let it kind of finish me, but because I can remember times when I've raised my hand, which is shaking, my stomach is churning, but I'm asking that question in a forum. And much to my surprise, it was almost always received very nicely. So perhaps the problem was just internal, a problem of confidence. Can I ask this question? Am I even asking the right question? Have I done my homework? So to come out of that, I think that little anger was necessary to say, no, this question needs to be asked, sort of a thing. So,
Rachna, I'd like to take what you're saying a little further. Huh?
mm-hmm.
See, one of the things that I have found extremely debilitating for myself is the idea of ahimsa that we have internalized. Right?
It's very interesting.
Yeah, because what Gandhiji talked about was satya agraha. Okay. Now, a Satya Agraha, which reinstates my dignity, that tells the other person, get out of my space, is not violence. Yeah. By not doing this, by allowing the other person to aggress your space and get into this idiotic idea that, you know what, you shouldn't be angry. Right? And then they'll, you know, my elders would give the example of Yudhishthira. Now I can tell the man, Yudhishthira was called Yudhishthira was because Yudhi Thira. He knew how to fight. He knew when to stop. That's why he's called Yudhishthira. Not because he's a fink who won't fight. Right? And I think the way Gandhiji spoke, I mean, a statement which, I mean, he borrowed from Tilak, but to be able to say, you know, Swatantrata is my birthright. You're nobody to give it to me or not give it to me. Who the hell are you to even say that you will give it to me or not? It's a fabulously assertive statement. I think discovering and rediscovering this kind of assertion where I'll respect you, but if you cross the boundary, I'm going to kick you. I think that's extremely critical.
Yes, I think this clarification is extremely empowering, because also the kind of ahimsa and the way Gandhi is taught is, it's just so disempowering.
Of course.
So in the name of ahimsa, we are letting go of so many things that can actually help us claim space.
Yeah, I always wonder, why is it that all the Western universities today keep saying ahimsa, ahimsa without saying satyagraha? There are only a few that say truth force. They use the word truth force or whatever with ahimsa. Now, these two words were used by Gandhiji like two sides of the coin. Right? He never stood up for ahimsa. He stood up for satyagraha. All his actions were called satyagraha. So we didn't win our independence through ahimsa. We won our independence primarily through satyagraha, right? And like it happened in South Africa, there were violent forces that scared the shit out of the British also. And there's a certain balance between these two. The people who want to rewrite history without owning up to what Bose and others did. But I think it was a combination of all of this, all of which had energy, which had force. The forms of force may be different. And I think it's very important to reclaim all this, no?
Okay, Abhishek had wanted to say something earlier. It's still relevant, Abhishek.
Yeah. No, I just also wanted to add my own counter experience over the last 20 years in international spaces. I've seen how in spaces where I'm received, because people are in search of answers and now they feel India has some of these answers, I can literally feel how over the last 20 years, the way I show up and how I'm received in these spaces has slowly been shifting. And I've been kind of maybe, it's a very narrow, thin stream of things, but I really feel this has happened. Like I remember doing workshops on Gandhi, and in Brazil, a girl traveled 2 hours late night on the streets of Rio, couldn't even speak English, just to listen to what that is. That's kind of, and that's when I realized like how powerful my heritage is or my legacy is. Or, instead of dancing on foreign numbers, earlier everybody would dance on foreign numbers, and now there is space for Indian songs also to be there in international conferences where dancing is happening. And in so many small ways, I am seeing a resurgence happen and an assertion happen in some of these circles. So I just felt like bringing that trend in also, however narrow it may be. I've firsthand experienced how it's changed over the last 20 years for me, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I just want to say my experience of colonization within me, what I was thinking came from my own experiences. You know, I am very conflicted because in one set of frames, I feel I am the colonizer, not the colonized.
Of course.
And you know, I have been made to realize the privileges that I'm given because of a certain birth in a community, in a class, in a caste. And these are the things that, you know, these are the privileges that unconsciously that you absorb, and then you're made aware of that there are set of people who don't have it. And then when I started, my engagement has been for the past 15 years with the Weaver community. So the interesting thing is the reasons why the Weavers accept me or people like me is because I embody for them certain aspirations that they would like to reach, because the place where they are, the very reason that we go and we are talking to them or wanting to ask them why, you know, what are the difficulties in continuing their profession and how it is something that we need to hold on to, because then they show the mirror and say, this is the place we want to be, where you are. You know, there have been many, actually first time I've been called a Brahmin so many times is when I met the Weavers. The moment they look at my face or whatever, my language, everything, though I have lived for a long time in Hyderabad, so my Telugu is not in that way very Brahminical, but still they say, actually you understand us because, you know, we are both of the same level, because Weavers also consider themselves as Brahmins because they have high skills. They are not the lower caste people. So much so that some of the people who work with us, so that person, until now, he told me that, you know, I should never reveal his caste to the Weaver community, because then the acceptance will not be there. So for me, the constant recognition of the layers of, because the privilege, if I am aware of it and I'm not responsible about it, I think then I become the colonizer, because what they're aspiring to is not something, the place that, you know, it's fraught with so many difficulties and so much of inner violence also, but that is not evident because that is the aspiration. And when they bring their children, when we go there when we are sitting in the cooperative societies and we are talking, so they, I think, show me to them and say that that's what you should aspire to. That, you know, you should speak English and Telugu, then you should be confident and you should work on a computer, so many other things. So for me, the international or the othering of our own culture, that my experience has been that there are so many others within our communities, and I've been made to more and more question myself, you know, through the different fora that I came into contact, I was talking to, I was working with them, then I had to always see that where is the unconscious absorption of privilege, where I am othering them. For me, I liked what Hari spoke, that word of belonging, more than colonization, decolonization, which is, in a way, for a long time, it has been my favorite word to use, decolonization, because Paulo Freire, I really liked Paulo Freire, but whatever, I feel this thing of not belonging is the problem. And when somebody others me is when I am thinking of this separation of colonized and the colonizer. So I'm actually only struggling with that whole cycle. I'm always trying to be reflective when the processes are happening. So that's all. I guess.
Very, very interesting. No, Shamaji, there are 2-3 things you're bringing in. I wish we had a little more time. Recently, I was reading a piece written by a person called Quinn. I forget her first name. Yeah, it says how the white was made. Yeah, I think it's important if you're really interested in this thing. I think all of us need to read it. Yeah, because I don't think we realize how much some of the processes of colonization that were brought into India have to do with this creation of a hierarchy in India. Right? I don't think caste hierarchies existed in India. I think caste differences existed. And it's my own, whatever, in my humble opinion type, whatever crap that is. Yeah? It's my opinion that the structural violence in India is very, very different from Western structural violence. And we have to understand this deeply. Otherwise, what is happening today is we are interpreting the structures that we are living with and the violence in those structures with wrong frames. Yeah, just to give you one small example, I think the respecting of differences and giving space is a great way to be when there is abundance. Yeah, you grow whichever way you wish to grow, I'll grow whichever way I wish to grow, and so on. And if you look at the way the Indian system has been over the years, it's always allowed for differences, and most communities where they are today, if you go back into their history, they were all exiles from a certain place, and they went on an exile because they disagreed with that king. I'm quite in touch with the Kuthu community, the people who do Kuthu in Tamil Nadu. Many of them have come from Andhra, have come from Karnataka, other places, because they didn't like what the king was doing. And they refused to be part of that. So their lineages and their songs will go all the way back to where they started. And that is why they respect Draupadi. Because Draupadi for them is the symbol of resistance. All of them hold her in a certain way. So if we look at this, the same structure, yeah, of differences and distance and respect, when you get into poverty and penury, takes on a completely different shade. And then today, what we are seeing today of India is an India that has been bashed into penury. Right? So we have to look at this differently and see how to deal with this. Yeah, how to understand it and how to work with this.
See, with all due respect, I feel very uneasy with this. I think that's one of the things I wrote in my reflection, because when I came as a student to this work, because my study in the university was critiquing the concept of development, then I was thinking, if the theory has progressed so far that, you understood that, progress is such a Western concept. So then I thought, in practice, then I have to go and actually do. That is the reason I started work in this sector. But, the things that I was told by the founders of the organization I was there was invoking this thing of when, weaving was an integral part of the weaver's life, where, it's like in the village, the community part, it's like there is a participatory element in that, where the weaver weaves, and then in exchange, he takes something else, and but the thing is, so much of the travel into the interior, all parts of Andhra Pradesh that I had done over the 15 years, see, there is so much we have forgotten. I think over more than 200 years. So when I myself feel I'm actually, why not invoke a utopia? I agree, but it seems very utopian when I'm talking, because they are saying even their great grandfathers. So what we used to do early days when I went to look at the oldest person in that village, to ask him what his memories were of weaving. So everywhere I got this only the other, the village and the city binary only. I have never got the story from a sense of belonging, self-respect, and the forgetting is so strong. So when I say when I even listen to it, I have some deep within me, some reservation. So when I think the talk, when I think you only said that, the violence that we have perpetrated on our native communities is, less compared to the violence perpetrated in the West. Somehow it hurt me because my experience, my lived experience with the groups and friends that I live with and work with, the hurt is so deep. I actually don't know how the healing can happen, because I resonate when Naveen says, my activist friends and my friends who are I won't even say spiritual journey, but on an inquiry. So I try to always inhabit, because I do come from an activist background. I'm not going to disown it, but I'm trying to come to a middle place, because I'm understanding that the inner resources depletion that happens to oneself is not really going to help you in continuing the journey. So that is where, and that's where when you come to the middle place, but I still have this unease when we probably don't own up to the violence that we did and continue to do.
I'm not disagreeing at all, Shama.
I know you actually said, and please call me Shama. It's Naveen who gave me the G. I don't know why.
Okay, Shama. Okay. See, like I've done a lot of work with craft communities. Yeah. And my wife has done a lot of work with the Vishwakarma community. And we've heard their stories in depth. Yeah. And I've heard some fascinating stories about how they worked in a community, what was their heritage. And I've also heard horrendous stories. Right? And the only difference I'm making here, I'm not disowning the violence that has happened. All that I'm saying is that can we look at the violence a little carefully and not interpret it in the same structural ways in which it is being done now? Because there is a structural overlay, which is why I'm recommending this book to you. Yeah, because there is a whole difference between the ways in which these communities work together. I'll just quickly give you one example. Na? See, I work with a group of people where we have developed a whole way of working called the Kudam. This is an old Indian way of working. Now, when I go to a village which is rife with, Dalit populations, whatever, all of these things, and we stand up and talk and we say, what is the dharma around water? There is still a memory of the people. There is still a way in which they say, yeah, this is the way we used to deal with this. This is how the water distribution used to take place, whatever it is. There is some way in which they come together and they're able to set aside their differences and work towards a community good. Right? Now, this, I think, is a phenomenal resource. If this can be taken forward, there is a whole different way in which we govern ourselves, in which we distribute resources. The way we live and work will be very, very different if we do this. Right? But if you go into what has happened because of, zamindari system, if you go into some of those, there is a tremendous amount of violence. But isn't it incredible that in spite of those histories, this history still remains? So that is where I'm seeing hope. If this,
I was actually more thinking, I accept your point. I'm only thinking more about the Koya communities who were, treated in a horrendous way in Telangana, and I think it dates back previous. I actually don't know the history of how they were so alienated. And today, and now I think 200 years later, 150 years later, now I see how, they're all leaving their language also, to get integrated into the mainstream. All the fight by some of the writers and poets to actually get that language also recognized, at least regionally. And there was a time when the adoption scandal happened. First thing that people who are attacked are the natives.
Of course.
Like the Lambada community, the way they were targeted in Telangana is horrendous. So anyway, these are all the things that I lived with. So somehow that came to me, and I think it is much older than what I even know and recognize and understand. That's all. No, but I take your point, what you said. And can you please tell me what the book is?
There's one book that I'm reading now, which is called My Grandmother's Hands.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a very interesting book. Suki only recommended this guy to me.
Okay.
But if you, I'm sure you've read Frantz Fanon, right?
Yes, I've read. I've
Yeah.
read Frantz.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this guy is in the same. I would put him in the same space as Frantz Fanon.
Okay.
And I think as far as working with the issues are concerned, this person is much better than Frantz Fanon. Because Frantz Fanon is giving us intellectual insights, not clear ways of working with it. He's a psychoanalyst finally, no? But yeah, but he's fantastic. He's fantastic as far as insights are concerned. Yeah, I think we are at a place where what we are experiencing is the worst of the Indian and the worst of the colonized. How the two have come together.
Yeah.
And how we extricate ourselves from this is I don't know. It's a great adventure. It's a great possibility. It's also extremely difficult. Right? And the people most difficult to deal with are the serious activists, which I was one long time ago. Yeah. Because they're so full of themselves and they're so righteous about what they're doing, right? And they don't see how they're also filled with the pumped up power idea just as the other side is filled up with the idea of power. It's a very difficult situation.
Okay. Calling it an adventure leaves us with some hope, Raghu, for the way forward.
It is an adventure, man.
It is an adventure, of
What do you
course.
think
Yeah.
it is?
It's an adventure for the ages. So let's build on this next week further. Yeah. I hope some of us can continue to be here, and then there are friends listening who can also add in their reflections, and we can have a new circle. That doesn't mean a completely new circle, but other friends here, and we'll build on this conversation for the next week.
Naveen,
Yeah?
let's
So big thanks to all of you. Yes.
Naveen, I suggest that we open out the first half an hour like we did for this thing to reflections from the people who've been outside the hall, and then get into the
Okay.
book.
Excellent. Okay.
This
Sounds
is
great.
for people to
Next
share.
next time we start off with half an hour open circle. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and see you all
Thank
in a week's
you.
time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
I mean, do you also want to tell about, they can share their reflections in the discussion forum? Maybe.
Yes, so
write
there
to
is.
them. Many people
We'll
have
write to
left.
them. We've already overshot time, so let's write to them.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay, thank you.